my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle, pay the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life. All my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle, pay the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life. I'm married to this game.
What's the deal? It's your boy Sam holding it down right here in the heart of North Kakalaki. Alongside me is the one and the only Nate, straight out of London. So buckle up, because today we're about to get deep into the world of fantasy football and all things roster wars related. We're not going to hold back either. You're going to get the real deal breakdowns, the fire debates, and all the unapologetic opinions you can handle. They'll hit you in the mouth like a linebacker on game day. So whether you're cheering from the bleachers or strategizing on your couch, we've got your fix right here. So here's the game plan. If you're vibing with what we're throwing down, don't be shy and show us some love. Like and subscribe and stick around to the latest and greatest in the world of pigskin pandemonium. We're stoked to have you on board, and we're bringing the energy to every episode. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the International Football Bros podcast, where passion meets pigskin and the excitement is off the chart. Let's do it. What's up, Nate? How you doing?
Hey Sam, yeah, not too bad, man. Not too bad. It's a late midweek night here in London, but pretty chilly morning. But all's good, all's good.
Yeah, man. It's been a little bit since we got together. We did the wrap up of 2023. I went back and looked and saw that we did 10 episodes in 23 for the inaugural International Football Bros. That's pretty good in my opinion. So.
Man, yeah, I absolutely enjoyed it, and hopefully there's more. I think it got quite a good reception from the league. Hopefully there are listeners out there that are non-league listeners trying to sort of check us out and see what we're all about, especially in the off season. But yeah, man, I enjoy it, and I think the league in general. I think everyone's creating good content, everyone's creating podcasts, and it's good to just have a chat and talk all things football.
Yeah, man, it was great to chat and have a beer out in London. I really appreciate it. Again, you and Mike, man. That was a load of fun. I can't wait to come back. That place is awesome. So,
man, it was a serious trip, man. Yeah, thanks for making the effort. Obviously, you're based out in Belgium with work, and to actually just jump on the Crossrail, the Eurostar across to London. It was Look, Mike and I, the least we could do was meet you in London. So it was a good day out. Quite a few beers consumed, and a lot of shit talking. But no, it was good fun.
Yeah, man. That Sambuca though, I hate that stuff. I don't know why you guys like that. That is gross.
We did it. Compared to tequila or anything else, Sambuca is my sort of shot of choice. But I'm pretty sure it was Mike that was the bad influence with the Sambuca shots. I might stand to be corrected. Yeah,
he was. So yeah, man. So this is 2024, like you said, just trying to do our part because everybody else is out there doing their thing. There's tons of good shit out there in roster wars. And we're going to kick it off this year with episode 1 of the year, talking about one of the first things that happens in roster wars, and that's RFA, the restricted free agency period that we have. It's coming up in April. So I think the goal here was just going to go over like some of the nuances of it. So anybody is listening that's not part of roster wars, you kind of get a glimpse, and then go over some things, maybe some tactics, maybe some strategy. I know on our side, Brad puts out an excellent article every year and video. He had a guest star on his DD one this year. Didn't show his face, but we got to hear his awesome voice. And he kind of goes over like his predictions for tags. So I'm not going to regurgitate what Brad's already done because he does amazing work. I put it up there and we can talk about it. And then I'm looking for you to kind of give the background on the PP and the RR. I see we got a couple people in the house. Only one I need that's showing up is old Pink Piggy here.
Never in doubt. Yeah, no, it'll be good. Yeah, look, obviously, I think there's no one that really looks at it in serious depth on the future side. I think PP and RR are slightly separate in terms of their previews closer to the RFA. It'll be a good idea, hopefully maybe this year, or maybe sort of as we go forward to sort of maybe collaborate and do a more in-depth, similar to what Brad does for the futures. But obviously, every now and then there's a bit of change and the changing of the coaches and sort of members in the future of this league. But this year it seems quite interesting. Obviously, well done to Dave and Craig making it through interrogation. They've obviously joined us, and whatever teams they end up on, whatever the league they end up in, those are two experienced managers that have come back to join us.
Yeah, so they're back. I don't know. We haven't been told what vacancies they're going to fill yet, but my guess would be probably the two in the Promising Prospects Conference, and so that means that everybody is sort of already been through 1 year. They're a veteran in RFA, so everybody's at least done it once. Even guys like the Spurs, he's in the house. He's probably trying to learn some stuff. Because when I got to a couple of slides with the PP and the RR, you could definitely see, and I know for me as well, when I started in roster wars, like you learn as you go, and I made some big mistakes early, on in the career, and I've definitely, still don't have it all figured out, but you learn new things and new tricks and new ways to do things.
No, absolutely, and I think you'll learn as well going through RFA and going through your seasons here at Roster Wars is. You can prepare so much, but when you're on the field, when you're in play action, you have to zig, you have to zag, you have to change your game plan and work out how RFA works for you. And I think different leagues, different divisions, different chapters all have different sort of game plans that they use going into RFA, and that's just one of the beauties of Roster Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, so our first slide, we're just talking about these are straight from the bylaws. I kind of picked apart some of the things about the RFA. We're a contract league. Every year, your contracts roll over. They roll back 1 year. So everybody that had a 1 year contract last year now have 0 year contracts. And we enter the period pretty much all of April where we'll declare our tags. You get 5 of them. And I will go over them here. You get a super franchise tag, the franchise tag, transition tag, extension tag, and then a compensation tag. And then we go through the period of bidding on players, and everybody has their allotted blind bidding dollars, or what we call them as war bucks. And here's kind of the stages of RFA, what we do. This is the one I think that kind of bites owners every year. They forget what stage they're in or what they're supposed to do. Usually usually what you see is someone that doesn't have 2 players up at a time in stage 1, and then they go and they bid on somebody else, and they kind of get their PP smacked for it. But I think that purpose of having that in there is it allows for you not to just sit back and snipe, and it helps the process kind of move along. You have any issues?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think it's been in the bylaws that what the league is going into sort of its 11th season or 12th season now. So these are tried and tested bylaws. They're critically analyzed every year. They sort of every spelling error, every punctuation mark, and they used and improved and sort of built on. And I think especially the RFA, where there's so much happening at so many different times, it's very important to create some sort of organization for the RFA admin team. So they're obviously the ones that are monitoring, making sure that people are abiding by the bylaws. And I think, as you say, within stage 1, making sure that you have your 2 nominations yourself first and foremost before you start bidding on other players is absolutely crucial, because a lot of people, no one wants to get fined, no one does deliberately try get fined, but the fines are there, and obviously the RFA wall of shame is there, and that's also one that's tough to brush off.
Yeah. No, yeah, that peanut gallery that you have, you got to make sure you don't make it. Knock on wood, like I've yet to make a mistake. I'm gonna keep trying to make sure that happens. But yeah, it's kind of it's taking your time, paying attention to the different stages where you're at, and making sure you're adhering to these things. So I kind of wanted to highlight that part of the rules, but I mean, it's really pretty simple. It's not that hard the way we have RFA go down. And I talked about the tags. So I think there's strategy and tactics with every tag, and we'll get into. I ran some stats from last year's RFA to show who did what in each division. But super franchise tag, that's one of 2 tags that we have that enables that you make sure you're going to keep your player. It's the most costly. Super franchise tag costs 100 war bucks, but that player is with your team no matter what. And then once it comes up to the period where you can announce your contracts, you can give them what old Rottweilers Matt does and give them a 20-year contract, or 2 years, whatever your formula is.
Well, that's the easiest way to avoid going through RFA headaches down the line, and I think that that's the beauty of the league and the bylaws and the super franchise tag. I know a lot of individuals more frequently try to avoid it, or especially in the futures, and more in particularly my experiences in the PP. It's really kept for real game change players. And especially some of the younger guys as well. So some of the quarterbacks, whether you win them in RFA or whether they sort of roll over. And I think I think that tag is very important to make sure that those 100 warbucks are being invested perfectly, because it's a big mistake to spend 100 warbucks on the wrong player.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most costly one, but like you said, you got to make sure you're doing it the right person. It doesn't get used a lot from what I've seen in the main league either. Usually, I think no more than 5 each year from what I've seen. But that all is dictated by who's available and what the money market is. The next one is the franchise tag. That's the next lowest down. This one, it costs 50 warbucks to do. And what you're pretty much doing is you're putting the compensation starting at the 50 warbucks price and a first-round draft pick. And so this one, anybody can still come up and try to get them as long as they have the means to be able to do it. And that can include a future draft pick. Like one of the bylaws we changed either a year or 2 years back is if it is a future draft pick, then whatever the warbuck amount, they get that total amount back, not just the 50. So I'll get to the slides here in a bit, but it seems like franchise tags, they do get some action. They get some play.
Yeah, again, if you are one of the stronger teams, if you are competing on multiple sort of platforms within the league, you are in a situation where your squads will be quite deep, and you might have multiple high quality players, and you can only super franchise tag one player. You can only franchise tag one player. So you end up, the quality of players on franchise tag are usually also your elite fantasy producers. So again, it's not a guarantee you're going to keep this player, but you've obviously done everything in your power to keep them. And you're forcing a competitor or someone to pay a first round pick as well as 50 plus warbucks. And it's a huge compensation to pay. But that's what teams save up for. They save up to have the opportunity to go in on these elite players and better their rosters.
Mm-hmm. Next one is the transition tag. It's another means where you have a draft pick and warbuck compensation. So it's listed for second round being 25 warbucks is what it costs. Third round being 20, fourth being 15, and fifth being 10. I don't think I've ever seen in the history of these tags anybody using anything but a second. Have you seen anything like that? You seen anybody put a third round tag?
Not that I can recall. I don't think it has been seen. I think obviously, the biggest. It's not really the warbucks there. I think the difference in 5 warbucks is not enough to take a third versus a second. And I think a lot of owners know very cleverly that using the further extended bylaws, something that we also touch on in quite a few podcasts, is obviously the taxi squad or the practice squad. And if you're using a second round pick now, you can even upgrade that to a first by sort of putting a player on a practice squad. So there is a lot of value, I think, in second round picks in roster wars. And I think that's why a lot of players will prefer to put players up for a second round transition tag.
Yeah, I agree. I agree exactly what you said. I think it's the draft pick is what drives using the second round and not really the warbuck, because what's at the end of the day, use a fifth round one. It costs 10 warbucks. The difference between what it would be for a second is 15 warbucks. You're not going to pay a fifth round and 15 warbucks to get up to the second round. So I think most people just use that second, and they try to move on and protect their guy, but they get a lot of action too.
Yeah, look, it'll be interesting. It's something that's obviously just popped into my mind now, but it might even be something to cross the bridge later down the line, and it might change a lot of things. But we could even create a separate tiering of costing of different picks. So maybe we change the franchise tag down the line to 60 Warbucks and maybe the second round to 40, and then leave the third round pick at 20. And that might change whether or not the third round or fourth or fifth round is used. But for all example purposes, as you said, the second round transition tag is the one that is predominantly used within the transition tags.
Yeah. So that's 3 of the 5. The next one is the extension tag. This one is just it's the other one, like the super franchise tag, where you're keeping your guy. So an extension tag, you put on a player, it costs 20 Warbucks, but there is an escalator. So like if you had put Aaron Rodgers on an extension last year and you're trying to extend him again this year, it's going to cost you 40, and then keeps going until that person actually hits the RFA. But it allows you to just extend that term of that player, give him one more year on your roster, and then kind of kick the can down the road like Mickey Loomis does with the Saints, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think, whenever that day comes that we're going to have to cash all these checks, it's going to be tough because it's already getting a bit messy in New Orleans. But I think this is actually one of the more, I would say, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would argue that the contract extension is probably the most used tag in roster wars, and I think it's exactly that. It's making sure that no one can compete on this player. It's usually extending slightly older veterans towards the later stages of their careers, and someone that you're desperate not to lose. And I think the quality of contract extension players, again, they must be players that you are not willing to lose, and that's how you must foresee that nomination when you obviously extend a contract using the 20 Warbucks.
Yes, I went back and ran the numbers. I wanted to go for more than just 1 year, but I got busy and it got tedious, and I wasn't able to get to it. But definitely, from what my experience has been, and definitely looking at the numbers from last year, the extension tag appears to be the most often used. And then the next one after that will be the compensation tag, which is the next one and the last one we have. And the compensation tag, what that allows you to do is it costs 10 Warbucks. And you're pretty much, you're not going to keep that player. That player is going up for auction for everybody to bid on. And you're betting that whoever you nominate is going to go, you're hoping will go for more than 10 Warbucks. Now, we've seen in the past where it goes for less, and then you lose money because you paid 10 Warbucks to put them up there and you only got 7 Warbucks back. But we've also seen, especially in this last year, you put the right player up there, it can tip to your favor. And then all of a sudden, and especially when it's done, if someone puts a comp player up early, then they're putting Warbucks in your hand early throughout the RFA, and it can change the whole dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are the other nuances we'll obviously go through when we're talking on this podcast today. But yeah, I think that the timing of certain nominations hugely influences the journey of RFA. And as you say, these players up on comp tag are usually put up as players you're willing to lose, but players at the same time you're hoping will achieve a big return. We'll obviously touch bases on my team later in the pod, but someone like Travis Kelce is someone I'm strongly considering putting up on comp tag. But again, that's the different nuances and the different divisions we are in roster wars. Is what are the spending habits of your teammates within your league, and maybe there are people that like to spend on comp tags, maybe there's some that don't. So it's very risky, but it can bring a good reward.
So those are the 5 tags that we have available each year to be able to, before we declare before RFA starts, to go into RFA. And then the next few slides, just going to go over how 2023 RFA played out, what the teams declared, if they retained the players through RFA, if they were bid on, if they lost them. And I started off with the RR conference. That's chapters 9 through 12. And so you can see from the numbers here in the RR conference, there was 2 super franchise tags in play. And that was the Unforgiven tagging Deshaun Watson and the Blitz tag super franchise tagging Lamar Jackson, which kind of makes sense because those are 2 quarterbacks, super flex league, staple of your teams. You want to take them out of the RFA equation altogether and hope that, you hit on them and you have them for years to come. The franchise tags they use 6 of them. So the top portion you can see with Saquon and Roquan Smith were 2 franchise tag players that got bid on. The bottom ones Puffins tagged Derek Carr. He was safe. Legion tagged Daniel Jones. He was safe. Warlocks tagged Big Cock Brock. He was safe. And the Crunch tagged Goddard. But Saquon got bid on. I know that was the Pigskins guy, and I know Pigskins is in the crowd. I don't know who it was. I'm guessing it was Tyler. But what they bid, whoever it was, bid 64 Warbucks and a pick. So it ended up costing old Piggy 14 Warbucks to keep him. And then Roquan Smith was the other one, and that one got lost. So whoever owned Roquan ended up getting the 112 and 65 Warbucks. So what do you think about the franchise tags that R did last year? Good, bad, ugly?
Yeah, I think at the time, look, again, we live in a world where retrospect and timing is obviously, hindsight is ideal. But you understand, Derek Carr was his first year in New Orleans. He was the man brought in. He's on a big contract in a Superflex league. You have to protect these quarterbacks. So it makes perfect sense. Daniel Jones just got paid big dollar, and there was a lot of hype around him going into the season before his injury. Again, you totally understand Daniel Jones. If anything, I think Brock Purdy was probably one of the riskier franchise tags. And I think the sort of smoke around him, there were a lot of question marks going into the season. But flip, we know how the Warlock season panned out, and they played an absolute blinder. Dallas Goedert, an interesting one for the Crunch. I'm sure we'll sort of maybe touch base on who else they sort of use their tags on. But a tight end, look, the elite tight ends do tend to bring back quite a good value. But and Dallas Goedert, good tight end, but possibly replaceable. So maybe there are a few question marks there. Otherwise, Saquon Barkley and Roquan Smith, two elite performers, running back, crucial positions. Makes a lot of sense seeing those franchise tags placed on those players.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, you're right. Like, hey, we're looking at this, from already knowing how the 2023 season played out. This was before the NFL draft even. So you didn't even know, like, if these players were going to lose any value by the draft, if they were gain value at all. So you're taking, all that in consideration. Quarterbacks and tight ends, I understand. Top running back like Saquon, I understand. I think you got to kind of look at it as, or at least I can tell you how I look at it. I look at it as, what am I willing to lose? So if I don't want to lose Dallas Goedert, but if I lose him, I want a first round pick. So that's kind of how I would go into it, or that's how I kind of go into it. So I think all of those make sense. The super franchise tags make sense to me. And then, because you got to know the water of your league and how much money's out there and who's looking for what. They used a lot of transition tags. Almost every team did. So there was 11 out of 12. And you can see there was a lot of people that got bid in transition tags. And a lot of them got lost. Derrick Henry got lost for the 2, 12, and 40. Aaron Donald got lost for the 2, 8, and 26 Warbucks. Dre Greenlaw got lost for the 2, 8. That 2, 8 moved hands a couple times, and 45. Christian Wilkins was retained. Someone bid up to 65 Warbucks, so whoever had owned him had to pay an extra 40. Nuke, I know that was Haji. He had to pay an extra 15 to retain him. Jeffrey Simmons was lost for the 211 and 45. Deron Payne, because DTs do matter. He was lost for 212 and 35. Brian Burns didn't get a bid. Okonkwo didn't get a bid. Alexander Madison and Michael Thomas are kind of the two that I'm scratching my head about. But I mean, if you want to try to keep them, I understand, because I'm not bidding the second round in money for either one of those players, or at least I wasn't in the going into RFA last year.
I think just to challenge you slightly on Alex Madison, I think obviously Delvin Cook was cut, so the Vikings were going in with a running room that we know is productive, or at least we saw with Delvin Cook. So I sort of understand the Rottweilers' logic behind it. I think Alex Madison was the heir apparent to the Delvin Cook carry volume. And I think a lot of people thought Alex Madison, in brief moments in his career thus far, had produced when Delvin Cook was down. So it did make a lot of sense. I'm actually surprised that there weren't more people at the time trying to go after him for a second, speculatively. But nonetheless, look, the Rottweilers kept him, 25 Warbucks. If we think of just general spending in RFA, and I imagine we might touch on this a little bit later, but general spending in RFA, if you are going after a guy on the depth chart who's top top running back in the depth chart of their team, you're very likely to go after them for 25 Warbucks in the RFA. So I can sort of understand that. As for Michael Thomas, we know Tyler's got a few of his favorites, and respect to him. I thought Michael Thomas was coming back. I thought it was the new era in New Orleans, and the man just can't shake an injury. That's who knows where he's going to end up in the off season in the NFL, because it does sound like he is a free agent. He is probably going to look elsewhere. Landing spot could be interesting, but once upon a time he was a great.
Yeah, maybe I'm looking at it from that perspective of, hey, look, I wasn't in on Madison and I'm looking at it from the now kind of thing with not taking that out. But I don't really think I was in on before, just because I didn't know what the hell was going on with that. But I will. There's more. The more context to this is the I'm pretty sure the Whitewaters still owned all the damn Warbucks in the RR at that time, like he does now. So if I'm bidding up against somebody that has a mountain of Warbucks, like I'm not gonna get in that fight, because I'm not gonna win it. So that could have been part of the reason why no one went after him either. Like Brian Burns, damn, I'm surprised he didn't get if people are going after Nuke and some of these other guys, I don't know how Brian Burns didn't get at least one bid. But what's funny is when you see these things, it's usually people it's what you see is people try to acquire a late pick, because you're trying not to give your opponent as much ammo as you have to, as little as you have to. So like the 2-8, 2-12, 2-11, like you're kind of, it's kind of a neat little side kind of hustle that people do.
I think also the one narrative that's slightly lost here is the timing and the journey of the RFA process. Because I know, for example, Aaron Donald with the Legion, I know Mike TT tag Aaron Donald, put him up for a second, and had every intention of keeping him. But we know how Mike was in the RFA. He spent all his Warbucks early. He ran quite low. And whoever it is that went after Aaron Donald went really late. They saw that at that stage of RFA, Mike didn't have enough to sort of match and keep matching on the transition tag, and that's why Aaron Donald went for only one more Warbuck more than his actual tag value. So I think that's those are the nuances of the RFA as well that these slides won't portray, but we all know in this league that timing is everything in RFA as well.
Yeah, man, that context is key. And it's the same thing with the comp tag. Like, you can be broke and all of a sudden, hey, you had comp tag Bobby Wagner and he goes for 30, or Nick Bosa went for 87. Like, that influx of cash means, hey, now I can go shop and I can buy Aaron Donald or whoever, and that you're just not going to catch, because like you said, the schedule and how everything plays out. But the RR, they used the comp tag 8 of the 12, so 4 people didn't. And you can see like Taylor Heineke was a miss, because they paid 10 Warbucks to comp tag him, and he ended up returning 5, so it was actually like a -5 asset in that manner. But Chris Jones 17, Zaire Franklin 36, Bobby Wagner 30, Jimmy G, because we talked about those quarterbacks, 35, Darnell Mooney 13, Alan Lazard 10. And the big Nick Bosa 87, like that 87 is monumental, depending on when it comes back into your team.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think the timing is that much more sensitive in the comp tag, as you say, because a lot of players that put comp tags out are very, very hopeful that these players are nominated early in the RFA so that they can recoup the compensation as early as possible to reinvest in RFA. But as you said, there are all strategies behind it, and I know we 12 different teams going into RFA, so all 12 will have different strategies, different players, different needs, so there will be different stages that the players are nominated.
And then below that, over to kind of the left, you got the extensions. So like we talked about, these are the guys that are just getting extended for one extra year, kicking the can down the road. CeeDee Lamb, Geno Smith, Travis Kelce on the RR side, so he's going to be up again in the RR side this year. Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Love. So some of these are big names that some of these owners and these ball clubs are going to have to figure out, with Travis Kelce, with Jordan Love, Derek Brown, Ernest Jones, CMC. I know Pigskins he's got to make a hard decision there. Jonathan Allen and Pacheco. So it seemed like 11 out of the 12 owners did the extension. So like I said before, that one and the comp tags are usually the ones you see used more often than not.
Yeah.
But it's the RR. Next up was the PP. This is your conference, so you know about the timing and what all kind of went down and how it all transpired. But it looks like you guys had 3 super franchise tags. The last conference had 2, and they're all quarterbacks: Lamar, Dak, and Josh Allen. Obviously, you don't want to lose at least Lamar and Josh Allen. That depends on how you feel about Dak, but quarterbacks are key. Franchise tags, you guys used a lot of them. You had 8 with Roquan, and he was bid on. He was the only one that was bid on, just like in the last one, he was bid on. You had tagged. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the one on Roquan, that was actually me going after Kenny. So Kenny and his counselors, obviously he was a rookie. It was his rookie season. Russell was last year. He franchise tagged him, and I had a needed linebacker. I had a first round to play around with, and I just felt also being in the same chapter as Kenny, it was very important that I challenged those within my chapter specifically to sort of try weaken their team, or at least if I'm not gonna weaken their team, at least make them spend warbucks to keep certain players.
Yeah.
And I think that's also the strategy behind it. And I was desperate to get Roquan. There were stages that I was ahead of that, and then he very cleverly went and made a trade to acquire more warbucks in order to actually protect him. And that's another.
He did that with Carla, right?
Exactly. So he was able to go cut a deal with Carla, accrue more warbucks and protect them. And I think that's also the beauty of RFA, is that the trading deadline doesn't stop throughout RFA. So there's a lot of behind the scene conversations, a lot of pick exchanges, a lot of warbuck exchanges, even certain players. The only thing that you can't trade are obviously your 0-year players that are up for free agency. Otherwise, everything else is free game. So, yeah, credit to Kenny for keeping hold of him. But as you said, other franchise tags there were relatively straightforward. The Dalvin Cook one obviously gives quite a lot of people head scratches. But look, I'm not sure if that stage he had signed with the Jets. I don't believe so, because it was before sort of the draft, and I think he was sort of looking at teams. But look, we're talking a guy at some stage that was considered top 5 running back for multiple years. So you understand the quality there, but obviously Sal and the Raiders will scratch their head and be a little bit upset. But other than that, look, I ended up franchise tagging Nick Bosa. I think he's a good player. He's young. Our edge rushers are competitive. The elite guys are fantasy relevant. But yeah, I think I always knew if I put him on a transition tag, a second pick, there would be a lot more people coming after him. Whereas in order to deter competition, I felt a first round pick was the very minimum I would consider actually allowing him to leave for.
No, man, I was going to say that I'm kind of surprised he didn't get a bid, but it looks like in PP, franchise tag players, they're relatively safe. A lot of people don't want to give up that first and plus all the warbucks to get them. So if you got all the money in your pocket, it might be a good strategy, because Bosa, Hawk, like I would have thought those two at least would have got some kind of bid on them. And then you see Brock Purdy on this list again. So Brock Purdy, obviously, last year, people probably picked him up off waivers. So he was a 1-year deal that rolled into RFA for all 4 of the conferences. And so far, you've seen the PP and the RR use the franchise tag to keep him. And both so far were successful in doing that. So I think the owners that valued it there, if they wanted to keep him, they put the right price tag for their compensation and were able to get them. Transition tags, you see, you guys had 6. Was it 6? Yeah. I'm sorry, 9. You guys had 9. Yeah. Pollard, Mixon, Gabriel Davis, and Mike Evans. Like, I would have thought Mike Evans would have got a bid, especially with Jeremy Chin getting one. So Jeremy Chin was let go out the door for the 210 and 42 warbucks. Metcalf was retained. Tremaine Edmonds, Miles Sanders, and Julian Love all went out the door as well. That Tremaine Edmonds one was 2-4 and 42. Was that you that did that, or?
That was me, yeah. As mentioned, you saw I went after Roquan Smith as well. I took a bit of time. I knew I was going into a rebuild, and for some reason in the back of my head, I just felt that I needed to acquire some quality linebackers to base productive IDP scoring on. And identified linebacker as an area that I wanted to sort of be more aggressive on. I would argue I paid quite a lot for that, considering it was the 204, and considering it was an extra 42 All Bucks. But if I just quickly go look at the scoring from the PP, he ended up scoring relatively well. I think he had a few injuries himself. But yeah, he ended up as linebacker 25, which in all honesty is probably not great return for the 204, but he's on a good contract there. I've put him on a 5-year contract within the roster wars myself, so I should have him for a few more years to come. And I probably should have paid less or been a bit more frugal, and I wasn't able to move my 204 later into the second round. But it is what it is. You learn.
Yeah, you go with the guys you want, so I don't blame you there. Comp tag, you see Dre Greenlaw at 40, Buda Baker at 20. The Josh Allen there is the defensive end, Josh Allen at 10. Frankie Louvu, 25. Drew Tranquil was the loser on this side, just like who was it on the last side? It was the quarterback.
Taylor Heineke.
Yeah. So he went for 5, so that's a -5. Mike Williams at 10. That's kind of surprising. I'm off that BMW train because I'm sick of dealing with it. But I would have thought he probably would have went for more than 10. I think that was Shaq's nominee. James Conner at 10 and Alex Highsmith 14. So your big one was Dre Greenlaw at 40, and they comped him. And then he had the injury this year, so that's gonna sting. But the difference in prices here, Bosa, who you put the transition tag on and no one bid, went for 87 over there in the RR as a comp. So every market is different, which is fun trying to figure out. Because you can't.
No, exactly. You can't predict what's going to happen. I also seem to remember a lot of our comp tags only sort of coming out towards the end of RFA when a lot of the money had been spent.
Okay.
There's also a huge imbalance in the PP in terms of who has Warbucks and who doesn't. Keith, as we all know in the Falcons, he loves his Warbucks. He accrues them. He has a huge war chest. He's got well over, I think, 400 Warbucks. But the funny thing with Keith is we all are waiting for him to come and actually cash his checks sooner rather than later. But he stuck to his guns. He held on to his money. And I'm sure he obviously knows the players that he's targeting or going after. Whether 2024 will be any different, we'll obviously find out.
Yeah.
But Keith resisted the temptation and didn't go too aggressively after anyone. But otherwise, I think everyone else didn't really have the funds to be too aggressive. And when you do look at a lot of those contact players, they're all decent players, but none of them are clear standout. Mike Williams, as you say, is an option, but he was always the wide receiver too there. Some of those linebackers are good, but it's IDP, and IDP can be sort of boom or bust in terms of players that actually pay very close attention to it or not.
Yep. And then the last thing that on the PP last tag was the extension tag, and 11 of the 12 owners used it there. And it looks like Keith was the one owner that didn't.
No, I think it was me.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, Keith's right there. It was you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was me. I just, as I said, I was going into a rebuild at the start of the year. I knew I was. So to me, the extension tag was actually a waste of 20 Warbucks for me. I didn't want to have the problem of someone else in RFA the following year. And if I'm brutally honest, my squad just generally wasn't good enough. I think I only used the franchise tag actually for Nick Bosa. That was the only tag I used altogether. Last year, and I was just trying to cash a few pennies, and now I'm going into this RFA with the second most Warbucks. It's not by a big margin, but I just felt that I needed down the line to save some money.
No, I mean that right there, like your Warbuck cash and who else has them, it can influence or dictate even how you want to approach the RFA as far as, do I want to tag a lot of people? Like last year I used almost every tag. I think I might have used all of them. And so that was pretty much my RFA. Like I went out and bought some players, but my RFA was definitely more focused around keeping the players I wanted to keep. Anybody on that extension list that stands out? Like I think obviously Travis Kelce was extended. You've acquired him now. So if you talked about how you maybe look at a comping him or extended him. But if you extended him, since he just got one, it's going to be a increase that escalator up to 40.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I felt I got relatively good value. I know Kenny obviously put Kelsey up on his trade bait, looking for a second or third, and I managed to get him for a third round pick, even though he was a free agent, which I thought was all right, an all right price for him. And now it's really just tossing up whether, because I'm a rebuild team, Kelsey's definitely not going to win a championship with me anytime soon. So the reality is, where and how can I get the most value for Kelsey? Is it in the comp tag, which helps me immediately with Warbucks for this RFA, or is it a case of extending him for 40 Warbucks or paying 25 Warbucks and willing to take a second round pick?
Which is an upgrade based off of what you paid to get him, but at the same time,
exactly. But at the same time, is a second round pick
enough?
Worth for Kelsey? Look, obviously, I was lucky to get him for a third round pick, but at the end of the day, it's a third round pick plus whatever I paid to tag him. And also at the same time, I'll sort of navigate that. Otherwise, obviously, AJ Brown was extended for the second year. It's going to be very interesting to see what the Blizzards do this year, because they inevitably, if they want to tag him again, they'll have to pay 60 Warbucks now just to extend him for 1 year. And if we look at their team, they've also got Stephon Diggs that they need to tag, or that's a free agent. They've got Kyron Williams, the running back out of the Rams, that's a free agent. They've got some good IDP players like Anzalone, who's been good value, Van Ginkel, Jordan Brooks, for example. So they've got a lot of players that are scoring well over 250 points in the season. So I think the Blizzard are going to have a very big influence on the RFA this year in terms of who they put up and how aggressively people go after their players.
I'm looking at his money, and he looks like he's fifth in line right now with 279.
Exactly.
So and bear in mind, kind of middle of the pack.
Exactly, and it's something we probably didn't say at the start, but or we explained individually how much each Warbuck is, but obviously every year we get, is it 250?
225.
We get 225, and essentially if you use every single tag, you end up spending about 210 Warbucks. So that's your entire annual sort of income. Yeah. Exactly, that's just another debate. So it's going to be very interesting to see what some of these powerhouses like the Blizzard do in keeping the band together, and whether he's able to, and he'll end up having to sacrifice some players. So I think it might be, I've got a sneaky suspicion this is the year of the Falcons, and I can see Keith being quite aggressive this RFA, but then again, I think people have been saying that for the last 6 years.
Well, I'll tell you, man, for the Blizzard, if he were to extend it again, 60 Warbucks, I mean, that's pretty much you're overpaying what you would pay to put a franchise tag on AJ Brown. And we'll get to it. AJ Brown was a franchise tag was put on him in the TT, and he went bye-bye. So
yeah,
it's either you're gonna risk that, or you're gonna pay the escalator up to 60, or you're gonna super franchise tag. It's gonna be a call, and if he's got other people that he's got to protect, it's gonna be a tough one. You could also see him do. You could also see him do what these guys over the DD did. And I'll get to their super franchise tag and franchise tag in a second, but because we're talking about a big time wide receiver, I think it was Andy that had comp tag Tyreek Hill, and you can see right there he went for 121 Warbucks. Like that, adding that into your equation, like that's more than half of what you get on the annual allotment. That's a big deal. Derek Carr was another one that was comp tagged. There was only 4 owners that did comp tags. Derek Carr was one. He went for 90, so that was a good hit. We saw in other conferences people franchise tag Derek Carr because he's a quarterback, so that tells you the value of quarterback in this league. TJ Edwards went with 35, Matt Milano with 15, so they're all plus. Just some were extremely more plus than others.
Yeah.
But they did the same thing. Super franchise tag some players you would expect. Mahomes, Mark Andrews, Josh Allen, Lamar. Like, you want to keep them on your team, you have to pay to do it, but those guys are worthwhile for locking them up for as long as you can. Their franchise tags, they had 7 of them. So seven out of the 12 owners use them. TJ Watt, Quentin Williams both got retained, but they were both bid on. And then you see Devin White, Debo, Pacheco, Burns again. So Burns was used for a transition tag and no one bid on him. The Africans used a franchise tag and no one bid on him. And then Devontae. Any of these stand out as anything you think is weird or indifferent about?
Not really. I think those 4 super franchise tag makes sense. I think we know how Ian operates. He's a serial winner obviously in the main league. So the guy likes to keep his team together. He likes to keep the trusty players that he trusts really and feels loyal to. So I understand why he super franchise tagged Mark Andrews and then ended up franchise tagging Brian Burns. But I could easily see that in other leagues being a franchise tag and a transition tag subsequently as well. Also, to give a bit more context, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but I think there is just a lot more wealth within the main league. So the values of players will be slightly different, where I think the average Warbucks accumulated by a team, or at least the average in the DD, the average in sort of the TT, I would guess is higher than the futures. And obviously the sort of caveat to that is that you guys also have 1 year extra of picks to trade and to move around, so that creates a bit more flexibility in making things happen behind the scenes. But sort of getting back to the franchise tag, I think Pacheco was an interesting one. I think it's the right decision in the end. He's young, he's on an explosive offense, but at the same time, I think there were enough question marks around him. But the Muskies are going through a bit of a rebuild themselves, and I don't know how much quality there was in Dan's team at the time. So maybe he just felt Pacheco was just one too many players to lose, to also try avoid Pink, and that's another thing that top part of conversation that does come up, because that's something I obviously had to bear in mind very evidently as well in the futures league is I can lose, but I mustn't lose too much.
I don't know this for certain, but I'm pretty sure that he probably traded away Pacheco just because that's how he's been doing recently. He's the most active trader in the whole league right now, the Muskies. So I don't disagree with Pacheco. I get it. If I was going to lose him, I'd want a first round pick. A second wouldn't be enough for me. So if I'm trying to retain the guy, I think that was a good call. You see the TT transition tag second round picks that were put up in the DD. There was 7 of them, and all but 2 got bid on. So Cameron Hayward and Jacoby Myers were safe, but Mosley, Amari, Jonathan Allen, Chiggy, Deron Payne, Gino, and Ramondre Steven, all got bid on. All of them were retained, minus the top 2 of Mosley and Cooper. So, yeah. But to go back to what you said about the Warbuck total, I think it's more of the haves and have-nots. Looking at it right now, going into the 2024 RFA started tomorrow. Andy would have the most with 505 over there in the DD, and Dan is he's pretty much already out of the RFA. He's got 35. So if he uses any tag, if he uses the contract extension, he goes down to 15 Warbucks. And this is assuming he doesn't go out and acquire more Warbucks, but if it started tomorrow.
Yeah, does Dan have anyone just to tease on the comp tag list? Maybe 10 Warbucks to go comp someone and hope to bring back 120 Warbucks.
So we'll get the next slide is what Brad did when he came up with his projections, and I think he has that all predicted out. So I'll get to that next. Do you see anything, just to close out this slide, do you see anything off on the extensions? JJ, that's going to be a decision for the Eternals. Obviously, he's probably going to super franchise tag him if he wants to keep him, because you want to lock him up. This is where you see Brock Purdy kind of do different. He was franchise tags in the other 2 divisions, and he was a extension here.
Yeah, look, I think obviously if you look at the context around the Eternals there, they're obviously very cash rich now, but I imagine that was the huge influx in comp tagging Tyreek Hill. So I think prior in the build-up to that RFA, Andy might not necessarily have been in such a rich position at the start because of the comp tag in hindsight. So it makes sense that he extended Justin Jefferson. I'm surprised he didn't super franchise tag him, but I'm sure Andy was just sort of counting checks. He had just won a title, so he could maybe take a year off just to sort of retool and push things around, and that's obviously going to be a head scratcher that I'm sure he's going with today and trying to get the best price for him, or maybe it's he's not losing any sleep over, and he's happy to take that 120 from Tyreek Hill and put 100 on Justin Jefferson and keep him for the rest of his career.
Yeah, so neither one of us in the DD, so I went and looked just because to make sure what we're reporting, and we're talking about extended Justin Jefferson, but Justin Jefferson was already on a contract, so he just bought another year. So Jefferson's not going to be, he's not going to be in the RFA this year. That's the one thing that we didn't talk about. You can extend anybody. They don't have to be on an expiring contract. So Jefferson last year had a 3-year deal or a 2-year deal. He extended it 3. So Jets is back down to 2 years. So I kind of like that. I think that's a varsity move to do that, to extend players that aren't expiring RFAs. If you have some dilemma that's going to come up in the future, you plan ahead, then you can make sure you keep the players you want to keep,
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think the extension, it's 20 $20 well invested, and as you say, if it's topping up a contract, it can be very useful if you can foresee down the line multiple quality players that are coming up for your RFA, maybe in 2 years' time, or 1 year, or 3 year, or whatever it is. And obviously Andy was being a bit more frugal this RFA, and it's worked out for him. And if you mention, as you say, the extension tag on Justin Jefferson, I'm sure it worked. The strategy is pretty obvious there.
Yep. And so, like I talked about, Brad, he does an amazing episode. He guesses and he projects who he thinks is going to use what tags. This is just regurgitating from his. So if you recall, the Africans extended Brock Purdy, both the PP and the RR. They just franchise tagged him for $50 more, and then they're able to put him on a long contract. The Africans wanted to see it first for another year, so they spent the 20, and then if it goes as planned, obviously this is February 27th. There's plenty of time. Then Brad had the Africans using the super franchise tag, which would be 100. So, do you pay the 120 to get to the long-term contract, or do you pay the 50 like some people did and able to do it? That's kind of the risk and gamble you're going to do.
Yeah, look, I think the stuff that Brad does in the build-up to RFAs is looked forward to by everyone, and obviously mainly the main league guys, because it's very relevant to them, and a lot of homework goes into it, and that little image there is pretty evident. Again, it's quarterbacks that tend to take up the super franchise tag. Puka Nacua had an absolute career season, and obviously the Silver Ball is also sort of retooling and rebuilding as well. So it makes a lot of sense for them to invest in young talent long term. So your Puka Nacuas, your Kyron Williamses makes sense. Deshaun Watson obviously had a down year. I think an injury hurts him more than anything. He's still on a heavy, big contract there in Cleveland, and I'm sure they'll try their best to get as much return on that contract. Whether he'll come back to anything will be we still yet to see. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Silver Ballers maybe super franchise tag Deshaun Watson, just because of the quarterback. The story behind the quarterback, rather. But obviously someone like Puka has been such a breakout player that it'll be very difficult to protect him in particular. So, as you say, it's about making sure you're not losing those players you can't afford to lose.
Right. Yeah, and so you see Brad's predictions are kind of go in line with what we've seen in all 3 of the conferences so far, and how people use the super franchise tag. The franchise tag, he's got 5 people actually using it. The transition tag, he's got 6 people using it. Everybody using the extension because it's a free look for another year. And then a couple people using the comp tags. If I do recall, I think the comp tags are few and far. They're not used, not all 12 of them at least, in the DD usually. But to go back to what you were asking about with Dan, Dan ain't got shit. So he's got him extending Dontavian Wicks. I don't know. Dan likes Dontavian Wicks, and he went out and bought him, so I'm sure he wants to keep him. So maybe that I understand why Brad predicted it. I don't know if I would do it, but Dan is kind of crazy. So And then he's got him comping Robert Spillane, which is a good move in my opinion, because what we said was Dan had 35 Warbucks. If he does the extension on Wicks, which I would presume he probably does, he goes to 15. But then if Spillane can get a good return, then he's gonna help his team out. But looking at his roster, he ain't got nothing else to protect. Sean Tucker, Calvin Austin, Ronnie Bell, Dontavian Wicks, Rashid Shaheed. That might be a decent one, but I like him better for best ball. And Dan's roster is shit. I don't know if you've looked at it.
No.
It's not the greatest. But yeah, so that's what Brad's got predicted. I like how Brad's got it laid out. It's always fun to see that. The next one is the last conference. That's in the TT, and this is the conversation we get into with that AJ Brown stuff, because the 3 super franchise tags that were used was Mark Andrews, Deshaun Watson, Max Crosby, and AJ Brown was put on a franchise tag, and AJ Brown went to the Gold Diggers for a 2024 first and 140. And just like what the Internals did when he got that influx of cash from Tyreek Hill, Greg and the Nightmare got that influx of cash from this move, even though he didn't want to, from AJ Brown. The numbers in the TT are crazy fucking big. Haji's leading the pack with 606 Warbucks, which is insane. You have at least 3 other teams that have over 400 Warbucks, and then a lot of people at that 250 to 350 realm. So TT is going to be crazy this year. I think, as you see, all the franchise or all the 3 franchise tags and the transition tags got bid on. I think we're going to see a lot more of that this year. Anything stand out with super franchise or franchise guys?
Look, I think Max Crosby. I think when it comes to IDP, super franchise tagging them is quite bold. But at the same time, Max Crosby's proven himself to be an absolutely elite performer and producer in fantasy. So, look, I think Colin will be very happy with the return he got there. Mark Andrews, we saw in other leagues. Deshaun Watson makes sense. This was Pryor's injury as well, so everyone. It was your franchise tag, like super franchise tag. So that makes a lot of sense. And then if you do look at, just to sort of give Crosby a bit of context there, you look at Colin's other tags that he used. He obviously extended Aaron Rodgers. He franchise tagged Geno. Whether or not he would have taken the first for Geno would have been an interesting battle, I think, in RFA. I'm sure you would have pushed him. But yeah, I think you did very well in the end with Brock Purdy. We've seen that already. I think in the Futures League, they also franchise tagged him. Calvin Ridley's a bit of an annoying one, because I think everyone was expecting Calvin Ridley to absolutely blow up in Jacksonville and sort of get back to those days when Matty Ice was slinging him 1,000+ yards a season. So I'm sure the Oysters won't be too happy there. It won't be too happy. Rashaan Evans, maybe a bit of a miss. Christian Wilkins, quality player. Scary Terry, Debo, and AJ Brown, a lot of good young wide receivers with a lot of career left. Scary Terry, look, he's on the older side of those 3, but these guys are going to be in the league for 5-6 years and performing. So it makes sense to try and franchise tag them and put good contracts on them.
Yeah, I mean, last year, you just looking at this chart, you can see it was in the TT. It was the year of the veteran wide receiver. Yeah, so all 3 of those franchise tags got bid on. Calvin was safe, but over in the transition tag, I had tagged Deontay and I kept him. Colin had tagged Brandon Ayuk, and I went after him and I got him. And I think it was Ben had Keenan Allen, and he got a bid. So it was definitely looking around at what was going to be available and kind of predicting and trying to put that value there so you get that return. Colin's team is good. He's competing, so I understand completely about Max Crosby. You don't want to lose that guy just for a first. So,
yeah.
Yep. Bobby O'Keefe, Brandon Ayuk, Keenan, Deontay, and Quinnen were the transition tags that got bid on in our conference. 10 of the 12 owners used them. Everybody used an extension tag, and 10 people used the comp tag. The big comp one was Facedio Okun with 100. And I think it was the Justice that went. The Justice had a bunch of money last RFA, and he went shopping. and so he went and got the guys he wanted to get.
Yeah, I think he'll be quite annoyed about how it sort of ended up there, because everyone thought he had a good chance of going all the way this year, and it didn't really work out in the end. But I think 100 for Lucon makes sense. I think he was close to, if not LB1 or top 5 LB. So that's very good return in our league scoring. Jeffrey Simmons is another interesting one. Obviously, a very high-performing DT. Chris Jones, another DT. If you compare Chris Jones, I think he went for about 17 Warbucks in the Futures League. So that's quite a clear disparity. And then you look at someone like Delvin Cook, went for 35, but he was franchise tagged in another league. So maybe that's something we could have looked at if you're comparing the leagues. But again, they're sort of independent ecosystems, really. They act differently individually. But yeah, I think all those comp tags, no one officially lost money. Obviously, Matt Judon and Zeke were close to, but everyone made at least one more buck, which I think everyone can be relatively happy on. It's a bit more money than they would have had, and they're all happy to lose those players.
I mean, worst case, you want to make your money back, and so everybody did make their money back, even though it didn't. For some guys, it wasn't a lot. It's still extra money in your pocket. The big one in the TT RFA that got the blood flowing was the AJ Brown move, and as soon as that happened, there was picks, there was money going in people's pockets, and stuff just started cascading from there.
Yeah, so look, sometimes the RFA needs that. I think certain divisions and certain sort of chapters can be relatively cagey at times, and people are just sitting on their hands waiting for things to unfold. But if you leave it too long, you lose out on maybe some of the depth players. And if you go too early, maybe you start something snowballing out of control. So, yeah, I think you always have to go in with a very clear plan and idea and thoughts and sort of preparation. But you have to be ready to adapt pretty quickly in RFA, because something that I'm not sure if we did touch on. Obviously, within RFA, you have a sort of 24-hour bidding clock, and a lot can change. Whether you bid 23 minutes and 59 or 23 hours and 59 minutes, which sends people infuriated up the wall. But there's a strategy behind it. And I think that's what everyone at times needs to learn, to calm down and look at the bigger picture here. And I think some people like waiting, and 10 minutes can be the difference between getting your comp tag money or not. So if someone wants to wait 23 hours and 50 minutes to match a bid, then they're absolutely entitled to. And those are the nuances in our league. Obviously, we want to encourage people being active and being online and being sort of involved all the time. But at the same time, there is strategy behind it.
Yeah. No, that's 100%. Then the one I think we saw play out last year as well was if someone's coming after one of my guys, like a transition tag, and I'm going to get a second-round pick, and if I go and bid on a player for a transition tag before I get that second-round pick in my pocket, I'm bidding a future second. Like the nuances, the flows, the roller coaster, like there's timing is everything. Or I could, like you said, I could just get more money in my pocket from a comp tag, and all of a sudden I want to go buy.
Absolutely, and it is timing that we've just sort of touched on, and it's waiting to get that compensation of the tag and then reinvest it possibly, or sell it for Warbucks. And there's so much happening. It's really an absolutely crucial time in the off season of roster wars, and it's such an important time alongside the draft. Obviously, when you make picks, you can't emphasize how important RFA is for changing your fortunes. And we are a money league. We pay our dues at the start of every year, but this is on top of the draft and draft preparation. This is where you're actually making your money at roster wars. This is what differentiates you from other teams. And you need to have strategy, and you need to learn how to be adaptable. And it's a great part of the league, and I couldn't scream about it more to the world and say this is why Roster Wars is the best league.
You can see from the comp tag, they got 368 Warbucks back into play from that. The DD got 261. So both of these conferences are probably, because the money in it, like you said before, is just higher, the Warbuck total. but they are that's a lot of moving around of that. That's going to change and dictate different things. You can see also, like I said, Brock Purdy. So Brock Purdy and the DD was the only one that was extended. Everybody else put him on a franchise tag and kept him. Pretty wise move based off of what we've seen, that he can be a quarterback that you can use on your fantasy team. So
he's just not going to be a Super Bowl MVP.
We'll run it back. How's Josh Allen doing on your team right now?
Yeah, he's he was super franchise tagged by someone else. Unfortunately, had to.
And here's big brain on Brad's work for the TT. It's already kind of, some stuff's probably already going to change because the Justice did the trade. He no longer owns Josh Jacobs, who was extended last year. So I don't think he's going to be comp tagged. Sty went and got him, so Sty's going to do something, probably try to keep him. But you see kind of the same thing. 3 quarterbacks are going to be, or at least predicted to be, the super franchise. Todd went out and bought Jordan Love. Once you go out and buy an RFA player, you kind of don't want to lose them and take another L. So I understand, I agree with that call. But he's got everybody using the extension tag because this conference does. And anything here that you see as off or weird?
Nothing really. Obviously, Madubuike, I'm a huge fan of Justin Madubuike. I think he had an incredible breakout season. Whether or not he does it again, to also commit 75 Warbucks to both a franchise tag and a transition tag on your defensive line is, to me, a little bit steep. You only need to start one. So I think it would be quite uncommon to see a team like Ben's Doppelgangers to use 2 tags on 2 defensive linemen. Obviously, on top of that, to use a 3rd tag all on IDP players could be something maybe that I don't necessarily agree with. At the same time, look, I think most of that is pretty clear. Calvin Ridley could be an interesting one for Ed and the Oysters. It's quite strongly reported that he will be leaving the Jacksonville Jags. I think he's got a free out after his trade, so they can get rid of him with no sort of cap hits at the Jags. And the Jags do need a bit of help there, and Christian Kirk seems to be sort of the performer there, along with Evan Ingram and Etienne are good players. So I'm not necessarily sure Ed is set on franchise tagging Calvin Ridley yet. And then just sort of the TT, all contributors, extension tag are no-brainers, especially in your league. 10 Warbucks 20 Warbucks for an extension tag in the TT and the DD is relatively a lot more affordable to 20 Warbucks in the future. So it's a no-brainer to use it, unless you're in an absolute complete rebuild and you don't want the head scratches of other free agents following year. But yeah, they all those it looks pretty straightforward.
Yeah, for context, Colin, the Vipers had extended Aaron Rodgers last year. So if Ed were to do this, it would be an escalator of 40 Warbucks. And Ed does need a quarterback. He's drafting at 1.5, so that kind of can weigh on people what their decisions are for the RFA. Ben is low on Warbucks. I mean, he's not the lowest, but we have some just solid people, like solid Warbuck stacks in our side. Like I said, with one Haji with 606, and then 3-4 others with 400 plus. Ben's down there at the bottom, close to me and Sty, so that might have gone into his decisions or Brad's decisions, what he put here. But he's got players. He's gonna have to figure out what he wants to do with Austin Eckler and a bunch of other guys that are expiring besides the ones he's got here. It's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah, look, I think as a passenger, obviously, our RFAs tend to coincide, or at least obviously the futures, the PP and the RR go at the same time. And we tend to start maybe a week or two after you. So it's not too different in terms of timings, but there's a lot going on in that period, and you're so focused on your own little bubble of RFA that sometimes you don't really appreciate what's happening in the other divisions. And sometimes it's nice when you've got a couple of minutes getting up to speed. But it's an exciting time, and there's a lot going on.
Yeah. I think Brad did excellent work here, like he always does. One What we don't have is we don't have someone in the Futures League that does this, that does a RFA prediction. So I don't have slides built for that because no one's doing it. Just looking, though, at the spreadsheet in the PP for players that are going to be available, I'm looking at just the quarterbacks. You got Derek Carr, which Carla has. You have Aaron Rodgers, Geno Smith, Kyler Murray, who you have, Daniel Jones. So and Jalen Hurts. There's going to be some big names that are going to probably need a franchise tag, super franchise tag, or extension.
Yeah,
look, what do you see happening?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm in charge of sort of the RFA preview and review in the PP side. So I'm in the process now of sort of putting one together on my sort of expectations, my predictions for who's going to use what tag and why. Obviously, we have two essentially orphan teams at the moment, with the Koalas and the Tough Guys being available. So whatever happens to those teams could well influence or will influence the RFA. So hopefully when those two teams find homes, it will be easier to have a more accurate view on what's actually going to happen in RFA. But yeah, look, I think the Blizzards have got a lot of head scratching to do. Looking at their team, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They've got 11 players all scoring over 200 points. So we've got 11 players contributing in that team.
You can only protect 4.
Exactly. You can only protect 4. Then you look at Carla's team. She doesn't have too many. I think she's going to have a pretty light tagging session. It's only really Derek Carr. That's also someone that I'm not sure here and there how it's going to work out. Kenny's got a few to worry about. Derek Brown had such a big season for the Carolina Panthers. Tours there, Logan Wilson, Justin Jefferson as well. So I think Kenny could have quite a lot of tags to spend. The Dallas Spurs as well, Christian McCaffrey, quite a few decent linebackers. So look, I'm not going to go through every single team, otherwise we'll be here for a while. But I'll definitely put some sort of a review together for the PP, and I'm sure someone in the RR will do the same.
Yeah. I mean, you guys got some players that are going to be available in this RFA. It's going to make it interesting. The RR's got it too. Just looking at theirs, they got Hurts is also in this list. Jordan Love is also in this list of RFA guys. Tua's in this list. Geno Smith. So that's 4 quarterbacks right there that are probably going to warrant some sort of tag. Pigskins has got CMC for the RR in this list. There's going to be some available people that it's going to be fun to watch and see how people navigate around it.
Yeah.
All right. So since we already been over an hour, I'm just going to ask you one question. If you had one strategy or one thing that you've learned throughout the time in RFA, what is it that is beneficial to your plan and what you do?
It's difficult to say because I think I've had 3 very different journeys through RFA. I think each time it's been a little bit different. My team's been in a different sort of phase. The one thing I will say is I think it's incredibly important, excuse me, to be patient. I think when it comes to time, I think you mustn't rush into things. Don't be brash. Don't see someone lifted up one more buck and hit straight away match or hit up one more buck. Just take about 10 minutes and just sort of make sure that you're making the right decision. I think things can go very well, but they can go very badly in RFA. And I think also it's maybe a bit rich from me at times because I do get a little bit heated myself, but sort of giving your fellow league members a bit of respect in terms of when they want to counter. People have lives outside of fantasy football. So some people aren't always online every single minute of the day. Some of us wish we were. So it's just a bit of patience around RFA. It's as I said earlier, it's such an important and crucial part of roster wars. And I think a lot of teams take time and just make sure not to end up on the shame thread. That's the other thing I'll say.
No, I agree. It's going to happen. It happens every year, like you said, though, with people being in their feelings, being hurt about a player that got bid up at 23 hours. You've already touched it, but it is worth going back over it, that there is life that's going on outside of fantasy football. There are other strategies that come into play. There's other things that kind of influence that, like we talked about with a comp tag coming, all of a sudden they have more money. So that's probably the big thing I would say is like timing is everything.
Yeah.
You should. I was when I first started, I was just bidding on players I wanted without realizing, without looking at like, hey, look, I should probably try to put this guy up at the most opportune time is for me to keep him or whatever I'm trying to do. Timing is everything. Be deliberate in your bids. Be deliberate in your not bidding. Because this is a great time of year.
And be almost even more deliberate in your nominations. I think there's a huge strategy in who you nominate at what time, and it is looking at the player who currently owns the player. Like, do you want that person to start protecting their Warbucks early? Do you want a bigger player? Do you see better depth and maybe you want to try add a depth piece early on? Do you want to add a kicker? Do you want to? There's so many different nuances around RFA, and I think that's that's just what we need to touch on. It's diverse. There's a lot happening, and it's a great time of the season.
It's the same like you see in any kind of auction startup drafts. Like, hey, look, you could probably use. There's times of the timing that you can get a deal, and there's times where hey, you're going to overpay. If 5 linebackers went off the board already, and the 6th one's coming up, and I'm desperate to want a linebacker, you might be paying more than what you would have paid if that player had gone a week earlier. So,
yeah, absolutely. I remember, I think it was the RFA this year, or maybe it might have been the year before. I think I comp tagged a running back. I think I might have comp tagged Chase Edmonds or something like that, or someone that was sort of neither here nor there. And I remember very strategically trying to nominate running backs as often as I could. Yep. So I knew I had a running back on the comp tag. So I'm going to nominate every single running back just to get them out as early as possible, just so that hopefully that will run dry and someone will be desperate and need to go after my running back on the comp tag. And again, there are a lot of little intricacies that need to be thought about and processed.
No, that's 100% where I'm at too. When I had Danielle Hunter last year, and I would nominate defensive ends and wait for them to go off the board, hoping that the same thing, like, hey, when my guy does come up, people are now like frantic, don't know what to do because they lost these other guys, and it goes for more for me. So cool, man. That's RFA. I mean, I know we can continue to keep talking about it because it's fun. I'm sure we'll get back into it. I'm going to let the secret out. I'm fucking stoked. So Nate and I, we are going to do a podcast, a collaboration with the United Nation Rookie Summit. It'll be mid-March. We're still finalizing the date and time, but we'll put it out. And I think it's going to be a great time talking about NFL free agency, at least a week of it, and NFL draft. You excited about it?
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I think it's going to be multiple different time zones and different leagues and different people and different opinions. Hopefully, I'm sure we'll get a date written down in the diaries soon, and then we can hopefully put it out early enough that hopefully as many people as possible can be live with us online and be involved as well. Take live questions, take whatever comes with it. But man, I'm always excited to talk with you and the guys in our league and just share opinions. We all have opinions and we all like hearing our own voices, but we also at the same time like hearing others.
No, and I appreciate the folks that were able. I know this was last minute us putting it on, but even we had up to like 5 people here at one time. I know Matt was in here for the Pigskins, Dave was in here, the Spurs, and then the Gators was in here as well. Just giving some love, showing up. So we appreciate it. We like doing this, and hopefully you guys like seeing it. Like and subscribe. That way we can make sure everybody's knows what is going on. But yeah, man, RFA. We'll talk about it more. But you got anything else you want to say, or?
No, not much. I think I think now's the time that a lot more content comes out. So I think it's good. Everyone keeps sharing information, sharing opinions, and stay active and stay involved, and look forward to the off season kickstarting. Really.
Oh, can't wait. Cool, man. It was always awesome to chop it up with you, and appreciate everybody was here. And we'll let everybody go.
Cool.
See you later.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, buddy.